We have been reading A Course in Miracles. We're now on chapter 21. Chapter 21 is called Reason and Perception. And the section we're on is section 4, the fear to look within. The Holy Spirit will never teach you that you are sinful. Errors he will correct, but this makes no one fearful. You are indeed afraid to look within and see the sin you think is there. This you would not be fearful to admit. Fear in association with sin, the ego deems quite appropriate and smiles approvingly. It has no fear to let you feel ashamed. It doubts not your belief and faith in sin. Its temples do not shake because of this. Your faith that sin is there but witnesses to your desire that it be there to see. This merely seems to be the source of fear. Remember that the ego is not alone. Its rule is tempered, and its unknown, quote, enemy, unquote, whom it cannot even see, it fears. Loudly, the ego tells you not to look inward, for if you do, your eyes will light on sin and God will strike you blind. This you believe, and so you do not look. Yet this is not the ego's hidden fear, nor yours who serve it. Loudly indeed, the ego claims it is, too loudly and too often. For underneath this constant shout and frantic proclamation, the ego is not certain it is so. Beneath your fear to look within because of sin is yet another fear, and one which makes the ego tremble. What if you looked within and saw no sin? This, quote, fearful, unquote, question is one the ego never asks. And you who ask it now are threatening the ego's whole defensive system too seriously for it to bother to pretend it is your friend. Those who have joined their brothers have detached themselves from their belief that their identity lies in the ego. A holy relationship is one in which you join with what is part of you in truth, and your belief in sin has been already shaken, nor are you now entirely unwilling to look within and see it not. Your liberation still is only partial, still limited and incomplete, yet born within you. Not wholly mad, you have been willing to look on much of your insanity and recognize its madness. Your faith is moving inward, past insanity and on to reason. And what your reason tells you now, the ego would not hear. The Holy Spirit's purpose was accepted by the part of your mind the ego knows not of. No more did you. And yet this part with which you now identify is not afraid to look upon itself. It knows no sin. How otherwise could it have been willing to see the Holy Spirit's purpose as its own? This part has seen your brother and recognized him perfectly since time began. And it desired nothing but to join with him and to be free again as once it was. It has been waiting for the birth of freedom, the acceptance of release to come to you. And now you recognize that it was not the ego that joined the Holy Spirit's purpose, and so there must be something else. Think not that this is madness, for this your reason tells you, and it follows perfectly from what you have already learned. There is no inconsistency in what the Holy Spirit teaches. This is the reasoning of the sane. You have perceived the ego's madness and not been made afraid because you did not choose to share in it. At times, it still deceives you. Yet in your saner moments, its ranting strikes no terror in your heart. For you have realized that all the gifts it will withdraw from you in rage at your, quote, presumptuous, unquote, wish to look within, you do not want. A few remaining trinkets still seem to shine and catch your eye. Yet you would not, quote, sell, unquote, heaven to have them. And now the ego is afraid. Yet what it hears in terror, the other part hears as the sweetest music, the song it longed to hear, since first the ego came into your mind. The ego's weakness is its strength. The song of freedom, which sings the praises of another world, brings to it hope of peace. For it remembers heaven, and now it sees that heaven has come to earth at last, from which the ego's rule has kept it out so long. Heaven has come because it found a home in your relationship on earth. And earth can hold no longer what has been given heaven as its own. Look gently on your brother, and remember the ego's weakness is revealed in both your sight. What it would keep apart has met and joined, and looks upon the ego unafraid. Little child, innocent of sin, follow in gladness the way to certainty. Be not held back by fear's insane insistence that sureness lies in doubt. This has no meaning. What matters it to you how loudly it is proclaimed? The senseless is not made meaningful by repetition and by clamor. The quiet way is open. Follow it happily and question not what must be so. The fear to look within. It's a short section. It was also called The Fear to Look Within in Helen's original notebook when she put it down. What is Jesus saying here? Jesus is saying the ego is not bothered so much by this idea of sin. What it really is afraid of is that there is no sin. And why is that? Sin it's okay with. Sin it doesn't have a problem with, because sin, the idea of sin keeps the ego's thought system intact. The idea of sin is really a very important part of the ego's whole game, and how it keeps this thought system of insanity going, and keeps us locked in, basically. Because as long as we think that there is sin, and that we really are sinful, and that sin is very serious, and sin requires punishment, and sin even ultimately requires death and damnation, that makes the ego smile approvingly, as Jesus says here. Makes the ego smile approvingly. Yes, very good. You believe in sin. You think it's real. Great. No problem with that. But once you start once you have this idea that maybe sin is an illusion, then the ego is not going to pretend to even be your friend anymore. That's what Jesus says here. The ego is not going to go away so easily. Its real fear is that you're going to start to look within and realize that there is no sin. If you go deep enough, right now we have to go by what Jesus is telling us, because we're not all the way there yet. But we have to trust the message. If we don't trust the message, then we're probably not going to go all the way with this course, because we're just not going to have enough faith in it that it's what it's saying is true. But if we're willing to have that little willingness and share the purpose of the Holy Spirit, which is the return to our true nature, which Jesus is assuring us and affirming to us that has been there since the beginning. Ever since the beginning, there is this still small voice that has been calling us home, and it is our own voice. It's the Holy Spirit, but the Holy Spirit is us. We are the Holy Spirit, just as Jesus says that he is the manifestation of the Holy Spirit. But we are Jesus. We are the same. We're not any different. So when Jesus says that he is that manifestation of the Holy Spirit, he's also saying that we are as well. Not maybe until we fully realize that. It's like you can't say, for example, I am God, until you fully realize that. But when you do, yes, you can say that. Why not? You can say, I know what I am. I am God, or I am love. and that's all that I am. Nothing more, nothing less. Sorry, this video is going weird again. So Jesus is saying, that's what the ego's real fear is. And really, you get there. How do you get there? You get there with the help of your brother. We get by with a little help from our friends. We remember together. Just as we forgot together, now we remember together. And how do we do that? Well, the only way, my friend was telling me today, that he can see himself without, that he is sinless. He's never done anything wrong. He's perfect. He's whole. He's this. He's that. And I said, well, you only know if you really. The only way you can really know that you really feel that and you really know that's true is if you can extend that to everyone else. If you can say that about yourself, great. Okay, I am not sinful. I've never sinned. I am home. I am love. I am perfect. I am present. I am wholly present. You only know that's true if that's the world you see as well. If you see anything in the world that you judge, or that gets you upset or angry or anything, you know that you don't really feel that yet. You're not all the way there yet. And I think Jesus is uncompromising in that regard. That would be what's called level 1. There's level 1 and level 2. Ultimately, level 1 is there can be no compromise with truth, because it's either one or the other. You either believe what this is saying completely and you forgive completely, or you don't at all. You really don't get it yet. You're not there, right? So you're either completely in the love, which would be basically out of this world, or you're still here and you're still not completely accepting what this is saying. This is very hard. This is, not only is it hard to understand, it's hard to believe, it's hard to understand, it's hard to accept. So, I don't think I accept it. I'm sharing you. I'm trying to communicate what I think it is. Do I really fully accept it? No, I don't think I do. Otherwise, I might not be here right now. But I'm not sure if that's even true, what I just said. So, there's no inconsistency in what the Holy Spirit teaches. This is the reasoning of the saint. You have perceived the ego's madness and not been made afraid because you did not choose to share in it. At times, it still deceives you. So Jesus is saying, yeah, you're not all the way there. You're still on the path. If you're reading this, you're not all the way there. You're definitely not all the way there if you're still studying this course. If you're still a student of A Course in Miracles, you haven't graduated yet. This course is a beginning and not an end, Jesus says. Yeah, this is the beginning. This is the beginning of the end of the beginning. No, this is the beginning of the end, but it's still the beginning of the end, right? Again, Jesus calls us a little child. And he has said this before, at least a couple times, I think, before. So we're not an adult yet. In a way, it's a echo of Paul in Corinthians, where Paul says, when I was a child, I thought like a child. etc., etc. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Right now, we are still holding on to childish things. We are still attached. We have not fully matured. We have not achieved full spiritual maturity. And if we had, we would not be here talking about this right now. It would not be necessary. So anyway, I think that's all I have for right now with this section. The fear to look within is not the fear to see sin. That's a given. The fear, the ego's fear, we are allied with the ego. So we are afraid, because of this alliance, to recognize that there is no problem, there is no sin, and we are not what we think we are. And we're holding on for dear life to this little meager identity that we have, that we unfortunately think that we are. And that's really what the ego is, you know, it's holding on to its little kingdom for its dear life, for its dear little life. And it has to kick and scream and threaten and wreak terror in order to do that. And the reality is that it's a tempest in a teacup, and we can now let it go, now that we have the Course and we can understand what it is. Thank you for listening, and the next section will be the function of reason. This whole chapter is on reason and perception, so it's talking a lot about reason. And keep in mind that Helen was very logical, and the Course speaks in a very clear and logical, even philosophical way, using a lot of syllogisms. So anyway, hope this is helpful. You can always let me know. Leave a comment, give me some feedback, and we'll see you soon. Shalom.